Hi, I'm Victoria Bennion, the founder of the Best Podcast Guest Booking Agency, and I'm looking forward to speaking with Prosper on the Online Prosperity Show. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the benefits of being a guest on podcasts, how you can be a memorable guest by sharing stories, and how you can grow a business while also balancing other responsibilities.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be diving into the world of podcast guesting with none other than Victoria. Now, Victoria, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Have I got on the line the best podcast guest?
Well, let's see.
Absolutely. For those that are tuning in right now, I'm introducing Victoria, who is the mastermind behind the Best Podcast Guest bookkeeping agency. Now, if you ever wondered how some experts seem to be everywhere, like they're omnipresent, influencing audiences in every podcast you can think of. You tune into different podcasts that you listen to, or the Online Prosperity Show, there they are. And you go on YouTube, there they are, and you start thinking, wait a minute, do I need more friends, or do I need to subscribe to more people? Nah, it's the works of Victoria, who is definitely there's a good chance that she probably has a hand in that. And she's not only connecting business leaders, authors, change makers with the right platforms like the Online Prosperity Show, but she's also one of those rare, courageous professionals who actually makes the process looks effortless. Let me tell you something. It's not easy being behind the scenes of a podcast like this, making sure that we constantly have guests and the guests are of good quality, because I can't do everything from booking the guests to interviewing them to editing the podcast and everything else that comes along with it. So people like Victoria are definitely well worth their paper their names are written on. But aside from her work, here's a fun fact about Victoria. I didn't have the budget in the show. We could have sent her a couple of lollies, because she actually has a sweet tooth and she knows a thing or two. She knows a thing or two about, candy and things of that nature. So we're going to be talking about the finer things of a life and the sweetness she brings into your ears through the work that she actually does. So we may even get some dessert recommendations by the end of this. You never know. So stick around. I think today we're going to uncover her journey, her incredible knack of storytelling, and why working with a podcast booker or a podcast guest, concierge will be a game changer if you're a coach or consultant that is looking to be on podcasts like the Online Prosperity Show. Now, Victoria, you can tell I've had a long day and you're only just getting started and you're just sitting there wondering, when is this going to end? Maybe take me out of my misery. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you into podcasting.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you so much for that kind introduction. That's very generous. I'm going to now have to follow that. Okay. So how I got into podcasting. So it was about, I don't know, time goes so fast, doesn't it? 5 years ago now. So I was doing more general marketing. I was working with a couple of clients. I just started working with a new author, and I decided I needed to update my skills, make sure I was doing everything I could to help her promote her book. So I took a course, and as part of that course, they were talking about the power of podcasting, basically, and how, in this context, authors should be making it part of their marketing strategy to get booked on other people's podcasts to get the word out about their books. And I had heard of podcasts, but I hadn't heard of this strategy before. So I talked to the client that I had, and I said, how about we give it a go, add it into your marketing mix and see. And at the same time, there was a Facebook group attached to the course, and somebody in there was running his own business, and he just was publishing a book. And he said, "Can anybody do this for me?" And so I said, "I can try." So I had my existing client I was going to try it with, and then this new client. And so it was a little bit of figuring it out. There was a lot that I didn't know at that point. But we got them both booked on some great shows, and they saw some really fantastic results, like book sales, speaking gigs, all the things that actually, I'm sure we'll go into this in more detail, but the things that you don't necessarily think are going to come from being a podcast guest, all those kind of hidden benefits. And then I found that hosts I was contacting to book my clients on podcasts were saying, "Oh, could you book me on podcasts?" Some of them were looking to grow their own podcasts and knew that being a guest was a good way to do this. And then I thought, I'm just going to focus on this and niche down and make this what I do, because I enjoyed it so much and the clients were getting such great results.
Such a remarkable tale, because some of these things you don't just wake up and say, "This is where or what I'm gonna do." You know what I mean? Because looking at it, it was just recently Halloween around here, so you would obviously like that because of your sweet tooth. But but my little girl, was dressed up, and she says, "I want to be a witch." And I offered her another costume, and because I just don't subscribe to being evil, like a witch or whatever, and I was just praying and hoping to myself that I hope she's not going to want to grow up to be that. It's just a Halloween thing. Now, the reason why I'm putting this across is, was marketing always the thing you wanted to do growing up, or did you also just stumble upon it as you trekked along?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. So I really liked books. I liked reading. I was quite obsessed with Enid Blyton books when I was young. So I read and I read. And so I thought, well, I think I'll write. And I thought I'll go into journalism. That's what I'll do, because you get to write. So that is what I started doing. I did train as a journalist, and I worked for about a year on a publication. And while I was there, I worked for the Diocese of Salisbury, so it was on their publication, and I was in their communications office, and they were arranging events and they were doing all different kinds of communications. I thought, well, this is interesting. And also it seemed flexible. A lot of people had communications officers, whereas journalism, I was wondering if I would need to go further away to kind of make more of a career of it. So I sort of did that sideways move into communications, which led to communications and marketing, really. And I worked in a couple of universities, and I think it was called the Southeast England Regional Assembly, which was, they no longer exist, but I got into communications and marketing. And then I took on some freelance clients. And it was really when I had my daughter that I made the full shift, because it was really great, really portable. I could do it from home when she was little.
Congratulations on that. And how old is your little girl now?
She's 13. So yeah, goes quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now this is quite interesting, because you probably may not have actually connected these dots, but you're still in the same industry. Journalism is all about giving content and context to stories, to people, and things of that nature. And now you're only just doing it in a whole different format, but it's still the same. When you put people on to a podcast, they are going on to pass on that information and content and context. So you probably just shifted the vehicle, but it's still the same concept. If you really
I've not thought of that before, but you're right.
Absolutely. So we haven't moved much. Technology has just changed in the way that people are now moving, because podcasts only came when the iPod came around, and it now just became a product just because people could listen from it from a pod, an iPod there. Now, It wouldn't have been easy though. I mean, you're obviously coming from a place of being employed, you've got a kid on the way, and I mean, you've got a kid that you need to look after, obviously, family and things of that nature. It wouldn't have been easy to get started transitioning into a world of the unknown because by then, even up until now, not a lot of people know much about podcasts, and you would think they
Mhm.
because we work with them, people understand, but very few people are in tune with this now. When you first thought about transitioning, I mean, obviously, did you think you were going to get enough clients, or was there some sort of fears that you would have faced at this particular juncture?
Yeah, I was certainly worried a bit. One of the things I did, so I think it was about having faith and letting people know what I was doing. And as you say, a lot of people didn't understand in the slightest, and I still have come across that. And they're like, "So you do what?" And it's the misunderstanding is usually that we produce podcasts rather than book people on other people's podcasts. It can take a lot of explaining. Sometimes I say, well, it's like PR, but with podcasts. It's, try to. But one of the things that I did when I got started, so I had my couple of clients, and I think I'd picked up another one at that point who was a podcaster. I went to events, and there's quite a big event in the UK. It's bigger now than it was, called Atomicon. It's a business conference. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to go. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't know if I was going to get anything out of it, or if it was I was just going to learn from the content. And I went along. They had pre-event drinks, and you had to wear a jazzy shirt. So and there was a meetup in the Hilton in the bar beforehand. So I got dressed and I went down and I just started chatting with people. And then we went over to the pre-event, and there was quite loud music. It's run by these marketing guys called Andrew and Pete. I don't know if you've come across them, but they're loads of fun. And there were like flamethrowers or all sorts was going on. And I'd met women who worked in marketing at the pre-event, and we were sitting together, and two other women just came over and said, "Can we share your table?" And we all had lanyards on, and mine had a mistake on it. So I'd scrubbed it out on Biro and just put podcast booking agency, and you couldn't really talk. And one of the women was sort of, "What do you do?" And we had QR codes, you could scan on the badges too. And she just started pointing. She went, "Oh, the company I work for, they need you. They need you." And oh, okay, great. Yeah, we really need somebody to get on and do our podcast bookings for our CEO. I'll email you. And okay. And so this event was in Newcastle. I'm in Dorset. So it was about an 8-hour drive. And so then we had the conference, and I bumped into her a couple of times. And she said, I've messaged the company. They're going to be getting in touch with you. And they did. And within a week, I'd had a meeting with them, and I was on board to book their podcast. And that was a good while ago. We still do them now. So yeah, it was kind of taking chances and just getting out there, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Just tell people what it is that you're doing, and eventually things sort of work out. You know what I love about what you guys do, at your booking agency there is you just don't book people. You actually also sort of train them and coach them, and also
Yeah.
just really help them prepare for what they are to come across, because every podcast host is totally different. They've got different expectations and web methods and personalities and characteristics and things of that nature. But you as a guest, you have the same message, and you want to make sure you deliver on your points. Some people are very serious, some hosts are very serious, some people are playful, and sometimes you get carried away that you actually walk away from the podcast thinking, oh my God, I actually didn't say anything in that particular podcast. But I love that when your people are coming, they don't treat a podcast as a job interview, but it's about showing up with authenticity and things of that nature. Tell us how you first of all came across this philosophy and what it has actually done to help your clients?
Well, I think it evolved basically. So that isn't how I went in to start with. And also, I didn't have huge knowledge. So as my knowledge grew, and I'd done a couple of interviews myself, and also looking at the clients who were getting the best results, and they'd often been working with a speech coach. They'd thought through storytelling. They knew the best ways to show up. And then there was a couple of clients, one client maybe, who was a writer, and she was so nervous. She wanted to have advanced questions from every host. She wanted to write out a script to read. And it was about kind of through educating her that that's not going to work, that you can't just hold a script. We needed to support her better. So that's one of the things we got a speech coach on board to just work with our clients. Even the clients that are used to speaking still find it useful, because they can get pointers on how they're showing up so that they don't sound too rehearsed as well. That can be, or how do they sound engaging? How do they tell their story? What are the highlights of their story? And so through working with one of the coaches, I think that can really help them to feel confident and to show up in a way that adds value, is engaging, rather than, the mistake some people make is they see it as very transactional, and if they're not nervous, they might show up and just sell because they've got to get in what their product is or what it is, and without realizing that is the fastest way to turn off listeners, and not please hosts as well.
Yeah, because the host has spent all this time building up, that show. The least you can do is show up and help them look good,
Yes.
in front of, which is what you're doing here.
Sure.
And without a doubt, I can tell, you've now, really honed in that craft. And I can only imagine the people that come from your end are already, that polished and things of that nature. I think the whole thing is just human interaction. Somebody comes in, you high five them, give them a digital hug, start having a conversation. And half of the time, some people, yes, like you say, they already come in with prescribed things they want to talk about. Sometimes the host doesn't know. And also, there's another thing that happens, Veronica. I'm also just using this time to let you know. Half of the time, we only are meeting you and seeing you for that very time. I mean, we wouldn't know your track record or who you are. You could be the queen of, your own universe for all we know. But when you show up in somebody's space, just allow them to warm up to you, and then things like that start working out. But some people already, say, give instructions. I'm Dr. Victoria. And, oh, okay. So I'm sorry, but does your mom call you that? Anyway, that's one of those things. So you actually mentioned that you were also initially nervous, about doing this podcast interviews yourself. And obviously it's natural. You're talking to another person you've never met. So this is one of those things, and it's recorded. It's a frozen moment. This is not going to be taken away from the internet unless somebody deletes the internet. So there we go. To add onto
Yeah, I did used to be so nervous. So I kind of, so some of our clients who are nervous, that was again why we put in certain things into our package, really, to try to support them. Because yeah, it's like you say, it's a conversation, but I think that word interview makes it feel like you're turning it for a job interview, doesn't it? And if you're new, or if our clients are new, then you get those job interview nerves, instead of thinking that I'm just going to connect like with Prosper, we're going to have a chat. And I think it's mindset is some of it. And once you've done a few, then you can get into your flow a little bit more. For sure. But I mean, the first interview I did, I choked on water. So I paused to take some water, and then I started choking. Luckily, I could mute my microphones. It wasn't all on there. Another interview, my second interview, I think I did. I had the COVID jab the day before. I was feeling terrible. I was all sweaty and the temperature, but I was so nervous about the interview that I didn't want to postpone it either. And so I think I was fairly frozen. She did quite a lot of work, as you were saying, to kind of warm me up and
Yeah.
relax me. Luckily, she was a great host and
Right.
very warm. And actually, we went on to work together. So it felt really painful to me at the time. It doesn't now, a few years down the line. Now I look forward to it. I'm just like, oh, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to connect, we're going to talk about interesting things. But so I do understand that that's, can be a hurdle for some people to get over.
Absolutely. And it must be rewarding because even I, so sort of as a podcast host, and maybe 3 4 years down the line, because I've been running this show for about 5 years now, you see somebody still tagging you based on a conversation you had 3 years ago, and they may be mentioning things that they said in that, and you're like, wait a minute, you still remember that? You know what I mean? So it's quite one of those things. But if you're working with your clients, obviously you're dealing with different hosts and you are putting them in different places and things of that nature. What's been the biggest reward so far? With having to see your clients coming back to you saying, "Oh my God, because of you, we've gotten here," and things of that nature.
Yeah, I love hearing their results, honestly. So one of our clients is a really lovely lady called Donna Kendrick, and she works with widows. So it's a very personal mission for her. She lost her husband, and now she helps widows with their finances. Like, what do you do if you suddenly lose your spouse in the first 3 years? So she's very supportive. We booked her on some niche podcasts. So she was really talking to, the right people. And she messaged and she said, I got 2 clients when that show went live, and my Instagram following's growing. And so I love hearing their results, but also we're helping people get their message and their good work out to a wider audience, that we're helping them become known, and that's just really rewarding in itself, I feel.
Absolutely. I mean, look at this right now. I mean, technology has come a long way. Can you imagine if you had to, either one of us had to fly to whatever location we're in, have to book out a studio and have cameramen and people and everything else all running around, and all we now just have to do is just press a button, and so much. I just wish a lot of people would take advantage of this medium. Like it's something else. And look at this. We were just joking about the time difference and everything else. It's very early in the morning for you and a little bit later in the night for me. But right now we are connected, and whoever's going to be watching this is going to be watching it in real time. They're not even going to look at what was happening at that particular time and the leverage of it all, because somebody might be listening to this in 2058. Hello, this is what we did in the past. And we only have to do it once. So I really hope so many people would jump on board and, work with people like yourself so they can be on podcasts like this and really leverage themselves. But the one thing about podcasts is the stories we tell. You know what I mean? People get known by the stories of who they are or who they're becoming. And it becomes a gift for you to then, if somebody hears you on this podcast and then comes up and reaches out to you and says, "Oh, I loved your story and could you help me out?" or things of that nature. But you seemingly do that easily. I mean, I don't know if you're English or it's just something that comes naturally to you. But do you also teach your clients how to tell these stories on the podcast?
Yes, we do. We have some resources that all our clients get, and we have some teaching modules a little bit to help them come up with the kinds of stories they want to think about sharing, or the fact, firstly, that it's a good idea to have some stories up your sleeve to illustrate your points, because as you're saying, really, it's stories that we remember. We remember them far more than facts and figures. So, I'm one of my clients, for example, he works in the health industry. And so he's got these amazing stories of people who've come in with problems and how he solved them. And he talks about a lady with hives who came in and how they got to the bottom of what was causing it. But you really picture the woman with the hives, so it's so important. And yeah, that is something we do. We suggest that, our clients map out their origin story, how their business came into existence, that kind of thing, and problems they've helped solve, pivotal moments. So think through how you can kind of illustrate those points really in a way that's entertaining and that, you know, it's just going to make you a more memorable guest and it's going to make the podcast more enjoyable to listen to.
And just listening to you, I mean, obviously the storytelling aspect and the empathy of you having been on the other side and also have hosted a few, episodes of your own, you've got this unique understanding. And then there's one thing that makes you a triple threat, Victoria. You've got marketing in your, what do you call it, toolbox. So many people just don't understand how to then connect the dots of all of these predicated on what's the actual use case of being on a podcast. Yes, we could record this, but it's the actual aftermath, the actual distribution of this that we're recording, which actually then makes economic sense. So I think your clients are lucky.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. And it's about, we like to talk to our clients about how to make the most out of each podcast interview, each conversation that they have, as you were saying, being tagged a few years later. That's content for them, isn't it? You can break up your podcast interviews. You can initially share it, and that's going out to your platform. You can take clips, or sometimes hosts will give you clips, but they might give you permission to take clips, or you can do quote posts. You can use it to really give you a stream of content to your own platforms. And that again helps your authority amongst your current audience. It helps your discoverability, all those things. So I think the marketing of it is something that people shouldn't overlook. They shouldn't think, well, I did that interview, that's done. That's the beginning.
Absolutely. Now, there's a lot that goes into booking somebody on a podcast. There's the follow-up, there's actually being accepted by the host, and things of that nature. Are you doing all of this by yourself, or have you built a team around you?
Yeah, no, I have a team. I don't think I can manage it all by myself. Yeah, no, that was quite that, because it is time consuming, and we try to make it as easy as our clients. So we do, as you were saying, all the scheduling and the pitching, the following up, filling in forms, scheduling. We advise them on things like their call to action at the end, any support they need around that. Sometimes rescheduling. So I have a great team who help do all of that.
Absolutely, yeah, because look at this, we're in a whole different time zone, and when somebody cancels on my podcast, I'm like, do they actually realize I spent the whole day waiting for this?
Yeah.
For them it's early in the morning, and for what I mean, so it's things like that.
And all the work you've done, to prepare for it, which I can tell you've done loads of research. And yes, it's a lot that goes into it. I think particularly for a host, because you've also got the whole editing side of it. It's very, it's a lot, isn't it? It's great, it's worthwhile, but it is a lot of work.
Absolutely. But you really have a gift for matching guests with the right shows, and obviously this particular skill comes with time, and you've literally grown and things of that nature. Do you just take on anyone who shows up on your doorstep and says, hey, I want to be on podcast, or do you also just jump onto any podcast that says, hey, I'm looking for guests?
I know. I think that's okay to do in the beginning. So if, we were talking about if you're nervous and this is a totally new medium, I think it's fine. If you've got friends, somebody in your network who's looking for guests, give it a go, get practicing, get comfortable. But if you're actually going to make it part of your strategy, it's really important to think about the kind of shows that you want to be on. So, and you need to do a step back for that. So what are your goals? What's your goals for being a guest? Who is your target audience? And then what are they listening to? Or where is there an overlap? And it might not always be obvious. So, a podcast producer might find marketing shows are good. His clients might be listening to how to market their business, or they might be, business owners. So therefore, are there some business shows where you could be? So it's worth looking, the different angles. Really
there's something that I've actually noticed, especially in in the podcast world. I mean, if you already feel like podcasting is your thing and voice is how you probably can disseminate your message in such a way, just being on different podcasts opens you up to different audiences that might then eventually become customers or people that you can work with in the future. Because if you become very specific when you're a guest, it limits the opportunities of where you can reach. All right, so humans are multifaceted people. You are a podcast guest booker, right? You're a mother, you're a business person, and I can't speak for anything else, but I know you've got a sweet tooth. You literally can go on a cooking show talking about desserts. You just so happen to be a podcast booker. If you can really tailor your message to whatever particular audience, I encourage people to be on as many of these podcasts as possible, because a lot of people are sort of now opening up to trying to listen to different things that are in the genre they like. So you might find people that are in that space that you can actually then convince who would have never heard of you sort of in the first place. So if people are looking,
100%.
people are looking to have that opportunity or a wide array of possibilities, especially when it comes to podcasts, what would be the best thing that they can do to get in touch with you, Victoria?
To get in touch with me. Okay, for sure. Well, I've got a page that I put together for your listeners, which is thebestpodcastguest.co.uk/prosper. And here we have put together some free resources for them. So one of the things that we always send out when we're pitching is our podcast one sheet. So just an interactive PDF with their biography, headshot, topics, questions they can talk about, contact details. So the host, it makes it easier for them to decide if this person is somebody who might be a fit for their show and directions they might be able to take with this person. We've also got a checklist of how to be an excellent guest on there and the ways that we can connect. So that's probably the best place for them to go. And look forward to chatting with anyone.
Absolutely. Look at you. Did you see the smile on my face when I heard a personalized link? It just really makes it overly, thoughtful. So thank you so much for that. I'll definitely, I think in the whole of the, podcast description, I'm just going to put that link, just because it's got my name on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely, I'll be showcasing that link over there. But I like what you have included in this. That one pager, I kid you not, that makes the podcast host job so much easy, because I can just look at it and it makes it easy for me to know, okay, this person, this is the angles of how I can talk to them. I can, move on a little bit like this. They're a parent like myself. I can joke around about kids. They are this type of person, because the world has just become so open. And so many people have different opinions and things like that. So you don't want to be, being a host like myself, like I'm speaking and then overly I'm actually maybe insulting you or, things of that nature. So those one pages are a lifesaver for everyone involved, and it makes everyone's experience so good. So that's a remarkable resource right there. I think I need to make one for myself. So I'll jump into that link.
Absolutely use it.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of obviously juggling a lot of things, you introduced us to yourself at 13 years ago when you had your daughter, but obviously you now have more than your daughter, and obviously that is obviously taking up much of your time. How does she do this? How are you managing to do all of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, so I have my daughter who's 13, I have my son who's 10, and he has autism. So he attends a specialist school, which isn't that near us. So he needs driving there. So yes, so I think I'd see it as pockets of time. That's how I've been thinking about it really lately. So my day's just very broken up. So although I said to you it's early, I usually start working at 6:30. And then I get in, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah. I usually will do 2.5 hours straight away. And then then it's broken up, walk the dog, get him ready, get him to school, come back, work for about 3 hours, go and pick him up. And then I come back and do at least one more hour, I would say. So I do that hours, it's just broken up. And I'm sure that, there's a lot of people who have different, responsibilities, but some of it's the world we work in. Like you were saying, some of my clients they're in different time zones anyway. So that's fine if I'm doing a little bit in the evening or I'm in the morning, it works out. Yeah, I'm just really lucky that I can run a business, I feel, and then do what I need to do for him as well.
Absolutely. I kind of, and thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And I kind of feel like being in a position like that as a parent like that, it really draws out. I mean, obviously, as a parent, you're empathetic. You're dealing with yet another human that is just, for me, living with me just because I'm paying the bills. But if there's that extra layer of care and duty of being a parent and, being a noble human, I believe you translate that to hand holding your clients as well, because that's now just the nature of you. Even the way you speak, it's like very soothing. I don't know, maybe it's an English thing,
Thank you.
or but is it just because you've now just become that person who really understands where another person is standing from?
It could be. It's certainly been a learning curve. So, yeah, it could be.
You know how important that is, especially for being a booker, because you need to understand two different people. The other party only has to understand themselves. So you need to understand the podcast guest, and you need to understand the podcast host, and you need to marry all of that. Takes a lot of work.
It does. It does. Yes.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. I don't think people would have an understanding of how intricate and delicate it all is, because yes, people would now be listening to a podcast and will be like, that was nice. And then they just fold their hands and then on with their work. But putting it all together, like you said, it's a work of art. Now, obviously we've connected the dots, like what Steve Jobs said, because you cannot connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And looking backwards, you started off in journalism. Now you are helping people, disseminate their information and things of that nature. If you could maybe go back to that time when you were a little bit younger and you're trying to figure out yourself, what sort of advice would you give to yourself, knowing what you know about life and who you've become today?
Gosh, I would definitely encourage myself to do the scary things. I think when I was growing up, I would avoid them. And then you realize as you get older that those things that you're afraid of, they're going to keep coming up in different forms, and you need to face it. So, that could be going to an event by yourself, or just even being brave enough to buy the ticket and invest in yourself. I think investing in yourself too. So the support that you need, developing your skills, and just have faith that you will get there if you just keep trying.
Ooh, I like that. And I like that a lot, because so many people, they just are afraid. And especially these days with all this imposter syndrome, or, getting out of your comfort zone and things of that nature, it's, yeah, no, I quite like what you're putting out in the world there. Now, people have sort of met you, Victoria. Now they're excited about knowing you and things of that nature. What's next? What can people expect from the best podcast guest?
Well, I'm actually going to be launching a new podcast with my sister, because based on what we've talked about, really, Pockets of Time, it's going to be called. And we're going to be looking at how if you do have other responsibilities, how are you the most productive that you can be? How do you run a business? Those kind of things. I'm quite excited about that. That's going to be launching in the new year. And yeah, just going to be continuing to support our clients and book them on great shows and help them get their messages out there.
I quite like that, because you will be booking people not only for other guests, but also booking them onto your podcast right there. But please don't get too high on your own supply, okay? That's Now, Victoria, I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience and the work you're putting out there. Um, the thing about podcasts is one idea can literally spark a revolution towards a generation, and somebody can literally take something from this and run with it and be and have a happier existence. Now, can you imagine all the ripple effects of those people that you're booking onto podcasts and just really spreading their wings and helping others be and have a happier existence? Now, thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you today, Prosper.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. Now, for those that are watching, as we wrap up this episode, I didn't really want it to end, but I mean, the budget and the tapes are running out. I can see red lights flashing all over here. But for those that want to continue this conversation, there's going to be a link that Victoria has supplied us. You want to jump in, grab that one pager. You want to jump in and just grab the few details on how to become the best podcast guest out there. And if Victoria can be of assistance, please reach out to her. And I can't thank you enough for sharing this insightful yet relatable moments on your journey. You know, what I really wanted to bring out is, yes, you might be doing all this high stack booking or whatever it is, but you're still a mom. You still have things that you're doing. And, some people might think, oh, it's a little bit too much, but there is somebody who's doing it and doing it gracefully, just like we have experienced. So I really am excited for what's in store, and congratulations on the launch of your new podcast. I can't wait. Maybe I need to find a booking agent to book myself onto your podcast, and then
You just let me know.
Absolutely. And to everybody that's watching, don't forget to, check out some of Victoria's work and where her guests have been on. And if you know someone who is looking to be on a podcast, first of all, just get them to reach out to Victoria, and she will be able to help them out. So you can be on fantastic podcasts like the Online Prosperity Show. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to this particular to this particular show, so that you never miss out on episodes like this. And who knows, one day you would also be on another podcast that we will be liking, because you now know how to present yourself or tell good stories. Until next time, bye for now.